Welcome to this quick video lesson for Billy Strings breaks on Don't Let Your Deal Go Down. I'll leave a link to the YouTube video from which I transcribed this below. I'll go through the tab line by line in this video, but if you want a copy, like a PDF of this tab, you're going to have to support me on Patreon for that. Link also below. So let me play through these two breaks back to back. Then I'll talk a little bit about the chords and form, and then we'll go line by line, talk a little bit about these licks and how to play them. Okay, this is how it sounds. A 1, 2, a 1. Okay, there you go. So that is the breaks from Billy Strings' Don't Let Your Deal Go Down. Let's talk quickly about the form of this song. So technically, we're playing this song in E flat, but we're not going to mention that because the capo's here on the 3rd fret. We're just going to pretend like there's no capo and talk about it like we're playing it in the key of C, right? So quickly, let's go through the chords in this song. It's really only 8 bars long. It's 2 bars of A. Oh honey, don't let you. Then you go to a D. Oh honey, don't let your deal go. Here's the D chord. Then we go to a G chord. Then back to the C. Oh honey, don't let your deal go down. Sweet mama, till your last $1 is gone. Okay, so a couple things you might notice. This is actually kind of a jazzy chord progression in the sense that we're in the key of C, as we're going to call it, but we have like A and D actually aren't part of that key. We actually have a chain of secondary dominants here. So the way to think about this is C is our 1 chord. Well, before this, the 1 chord, we're going to play the 5 chord. It's the strongest transition. G, C, often G7 to C. So we do the same thing to the G. Well, what's the 5 chord of the G? Well, it's D or D7. And then how do we get to the D? Well, we go to the A, because the A is the 5 chord of the A. So these are called secondary dominants. And what's the reason we want to know this is because if we know they're secondary dominants, we can play them as dominant chords and we can play dominant licks on top of them. So throughout this solo, instead of just playing random C pentatonic licks, Billy's really going through and kind of playing licks to each one of these chords, right? Also, it helps us with the chords because you'll hear often when he's playing, instead of just A, D, D, he'll do kind of this A major and then to an A7 and then D major to a D7 and then G major to a G7. Now I'm going to show you and then the C chord. I'll show you a couple of voicings here that are kind of nice to know. He plays them both when he's singing and also a little bit in the solo. So with the A, he kind of follows this melody. Oh honey, don't let your deal go down. And he gets this high note A here. So it's kind of an A with a bar, and this high note's here, and then goes to the A7 like this. So that's one you'll hear him do often. And then the D here to the D7. Or, this is kind of a cool thing, he takes this shape, if you know your C7 shape, he moves this up 2 frets and has this D7, often for the D. And what's cool about this is he often throws in this high open E string. So you get this, it's a 9 on the D. Which sounds a little, also I guess kind of jazzy. It sounds like a ragtimey to me. Okay, yeah, so those are the chords. It's nice to kind of go through those, just the chords by themselves. You know, G, G7, C, and maybe spend a little time with that D7. Okay, that said, let's talk about this, go through line by line. So here's the first break. This starts right at the beginning of the video. We have this crazy pickup. Now again, he's following a little bit of the melody, oh honey, but he adds a little extra to this. So it actually starts on beat 2. 1, 2, a 1. Which brings us to this A chord. Now we get this A chord we were talking about earlier, and then we get to the A7. Now, this is what's important is we're going into this D. So often if we were playing, let's say, G or C, we'd stay with our hand position here. But as we go into this D, this 0, 1, we're going to get that with our first finger and slide our first finger into this 2. And it's helpful to think about this lick. So these next 2 bars here are a D chord, right? So we want to kind of almost imagine that D chord as we're playing. Now here, this is important. From this first finger, I need to put my third finger down on this D note because I'm going to have to play the D chord right after. So let me play those 4 lines again. So A7, then you have this run up. Third finger comes down. That's probably the toughest part of this first little bit. Okay, then we have a pickup, but now we're going into G, so we're going to do this with our third finger coming down. So this is the lick on G, and he plays this literally 3 times in this. It goes like this. G7. So everything there is all in first position, so first finger on first fret, second finger on second fret, third finger on third fret, brings us to the C. And then the most common run-up you'll ever play. This is a little different, because we get that major 7, and then we strum the C. Now we're heading back into this boo-doo, A7, exact same thing that we did before. Now this part's probably the weirdest part of the tune. We get this D7 chord shape that I showed you before, where it's like a C7, but we slide it up 2 frets, and we slide into this. And I'll show you, what the tab says is literally this. But you don't even have to think about it that way. The rhythm is very important, and you'll notice that I put accents above some of those notes. So what's important here, it's kind of a little bit sloppier played, but what you're really listening to is this boo, da, dee, dee, right? So you hear these top notes, boo, da, 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 right? And if you get those accents, the rest of it kind of like fits in there, and you can be a little bit sloppy and hit a couple extra notes, as long as you're kind of getting those notes. That's our main thing. Right, again. 3, 4. Right? That part's a little bit weird, but it's one of these things that when you practice it slow, it takes a little time to kind of get it. But make sure you're listening for that boo, da, 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 da. If you're getting that, you're getting it right. Okay, onward and upward. Back to a G lick, and here's like mostly G pentatonic. There's like a G bluesy lick here, but right, back to the C chord. Boom. Now here's something you'll hear him do in this and a bunch of other things. Really common thing. He loves with the C chord to hammer on these notes. So he's just. Not all the way through that. So here's what this line sounds like, the last line of the first break. Alright? Okay, that was the first break. Here's the second break. This one starts around 45 seconds in. So we kind of truncate this and we just go to start it. So 2, 1 into the lick. So here's our A chord. So we start with, instead of this full A chord, we're just getting a little bit here because we're approaching a little different. Now middle finger is sliding into this third. Now we're this D chord, and we're doing kind of the similar thing with the D chord as we're like sliding into this major third, right? The A chord, then to the D chord, right? So same kind of idea here. So from the D chord, all right, let me just do that line one more time. All right, then run up to this G lick. Exactly the same as last time we did it. That bar is the whole line there is the same as in the first time. Strum the C chord. Now we're doing this this thing that sounds kind of weird, and we'll talk a little bit about why it sounds weird here, but let's just start with this lick. It has these 2 notes to pick up. Boom. Next line. Okay, so a couple things to talk about this. The first 2 bars. Theoretically, we're not hearing much of an A chord. We're sliding into this, if we're not talking about the capo, is a B note. Kind of sounds like a G chord to me. So I'm almost hearing a G. So I almost hear like G to a C there. But you can think of this note as kind of the 9th. And then to the C chord, or sorry, D chord. Yeah, there. Sorry, let me play that. So you'd have this, like, if you're doing it with the chord there, right? Kind of almost has, like, again, a little bit more of a jazzy sound, because we're going to this, we're really targeting this 9th on this A chord, which is a little, I guess, non-idiomatic. And it sounds maybe a little bit odd. I think it would sound a lot less odd if there was more, if someone was playing that A chord right at that moment. But it does sound a little bit strange. I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, you're kind of targeting kind of more like higher extensions of the note. And that's what gives it its kind of unique sound, those first 2 bars. Okay, and then we have this. This is kind of a cool lick on D. I'm just going to show you the shape. So if we start with a D here, we're going from these 2 notes here of this top D shape to these 2 notes of this top D shape. And we connect them with these thirds in the middle, right? And this is a cool little thing to do. You can do it on any chord in any position, right? Like I could think of it as, there's on the D, there's on the G, on the C. So it's a really cool lick that you can use. And he's doing this thing where he's kind of lifting up and just getting open strings as kind of an accent point here. So from the D here, we have these 2 notes going from this C chord, sliding up, 1 fret back, 1 fret back, and then to this D. So let me play that whole line with this pickup. So there's that D chord. Great. Okay, last bar is pretty simple. It's basically the same thing we just did. G lick here, so we want to get the 3rd finger on this. So probably middle finger there. Now this lick is almost the same. Here the ending is a tiny bit different. And then the C run up is a little different as well. And then we'd end on a C. Okay. I really like this last 4 bars just because it's just a tiny bit different from what we've been doing. And it's really nice to take licks that you've learned and just change 1 or 2 things about it. Because when you feel comfortable doing that, it becomes something that's not just one lick that you know. It's a lick that you can manipulate and come up with all sorts of different things. So I think it's nice to learn different variations or even try to come up with your own variations of different licks. Okay, so that's basically where we're going to let it. I'm going to do a slow playthrough so you can see my hands and everything, but I'm going to play through it one more time just at a nice slow tempo. This is what the whole thing sounds like. 1, 2, a 1, 2. Second break. All right. Hope you had fun with this one. Yeah, there's some great licks here. All right, until next time.